Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode number 69 of Imprint Cast, the podcast dedicated to the Australian boutique label Imprint Films. My name is Tony Michas, and joining me as always is my partner and colleague, Mr. John Mathews. John, how are you doing, good sir?
Yeah, doing well. Looking forward to today. And thanks for having me on. And really excited to speak to our returning guest.
Absolutely. Our returning guest, it's been quite a long while since we've had him back on the show, and the last time we've had him on is when we discussed his passion project, the films of Sidney J. Fury, that Imprint released on a 5-disc box set. But now, he just released another passion project of 2 films plus his own documentary produced by Imprint Films of Blue and Fade In. We will get to more detail very soon. Welcome to the show, Mr. Daniel Kramer. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's wonderful to be back and wonderful to talk about yet another overlooked Canadian auteur.
Yes. I have to ask, how did you first get into Silvio Narizzano? What was the how did you how were you first introduced to his work?
Well, that would have been a while ago, but what I think he first really got under my radar. I think you hear it you hear it in the film itself. There is audio between myself and Sidney Fury when I was first recording him for the book project that the book I wrote about Sidney. I must have recorded the audio with him circa 2012 or 2013 or so, and I was getting Sidney on the record talking about his life and his career and how he got to where he was, and Silvio came up because Silvio played a very important, very formative role in the career of Sidney Fury when he first came over to England to kind of scout things out to see if he was looking to maybe move there. Silvio let him crash on his couch way back in the circa 1957 or so. Because he was one of the first Canadians to ever cross the pond to work in England, because the Canadians of the time, there was no real Canadian film industry at all back around that time. Hard as it is to believe, there were just no Canadian films whatsoever being made, let alone feature films. Sidney actually made the first, what many consider as the first 2, at least in English Canada. We were talking, and I guess I knew his name. His name kind of was in the ether for me then. So because Sidney says on the recording, it was another director at the CBC now working for Granada Television in England. You'll know the name Silvio Narizzano, and you hear me go, "Oh yeah, Georgie girl." So I knew him then, I guess, and I was like, "Oh, well, another Canadian guy, interesting." And then of course you look at the filmography. It's just like, he didn't do a lot of movies. I mean, not in comparison to Sidney Fury, who never quit working and has like nearly 50 movies to his name. Or Ted Kotcheff, whom I also knew, who maybe a little less quantitatively than Sidney Fury, but he made quite a few films as well. Silvio made, if you count official narrative feature films, it's 9. I count 11, as I say in the doc, because I count Staying On with Trevor Howard and Celia Johnston, because that premiered at the BFI London Film Festival and had a very short-lived time, at least in having been screened to an actual audience, and Young Shoulders, which I think is just a purely cinematic work. So 11 films, and you look, if you don't know them, you look at the titles, it's like Redneck, Bloodbath. It's like, okay, I'm getting the picture here. And then it was really around the time that Vinegar Syndrome put out their beautiful new scan of The Sky Is Falling, aka Bloodbath. Bloodbath was the video title that was kind of forced upon it in the late 80s. A title like Bloodbath sells more than The Sky Is Falling. Let's face it. And when that came out, I saw it and I was like, "Well, what a crazy, demented, fascinating film." And I was like, "Oh, I wonder what other people are thinking of this." And it was such a divisive movie by the looks of the rankings on Letterboxd and other sites. And then when I went to visit my friend David Del Val around that time, David and I were just hanging out, and he was like, did you see that Vinegar Syndrome put out that movie with Dennis Hopper and Carol Baker, The Sky is Falling? I was like, yes. And it's like, isn't that a crazy, fucked up, fascinating movie? I said, yeah. It's really. And then we were talking about how, like, not even queer coded, how queer the film was, how much like male flesh was constantly on display in the film, and what, kind of the level at which it was operating. And we were both kind of completely obsessed for a time about just that one movie. And then I was like, oh, I want to do a little marathon now. I saw Blue. I watched Blue again during the lockdown in 2020. And that was the first time I'd seen it in the widescreen, because I have, hold on, above me, I have the Pan and Scan VHS copy from the, what was this? So what year was this? 1992, this came out. So, which is no way to see Blue. So, I saw the widescreen version in the lockdown in 2020, and you really get the sense of the portions of the oddness of the film when you see it in its full glory. And I was like, again, when I saw it then, I was like, wow, what an odd movie. So, really in conjunction with, like, I saw Blue in the lockdown, I saw The Sky is Falling, which in the original VHS Bloodbath version of The Sky is Falling, it's the most unwatchable tape ever commercially released. Number one, bar none, numero uno. You cannot see. It's in the documentary.
Yeah, I saw it in the documentary. It's just pitch black.
Yeah,
Can't see anything.
You can't see anything. It is not visible. You cannot see what's going on. It's so dark, and inexplicably, because these are daylight shots, and they're like completely like, are they trying to time it so that it's like video day for night? But you can't see anything. You can't see faces. You can't see details. You can see nothing. It's really ridiculous. Seeing the new scan of that film was like, wow, what a revelation. Who knew that this kind of beautiful sun-baked cinematography would have been resting in a film that I had dismissed as, incompetent, or at least like, worthy of a better release on video, because, it was so badly presented. So it was that. And then by the time, so I saw Redneck again. Redneck was really, again, the same kind of wheelhouse, same feel. And then you see Loot. By the time I worked up my way up to Young Shoulders, and I'm watching the nightclub scene, which is presented in the documentary, with the woman and the shark, and my jaw was on the floor, and I was like, wow, I gotta do something about this guy Silvio Narizzano. It'll line right up with my exploration and my championing and my advocacy for Canadian cinema, and early Canadian cinema in particular is my interest field of mine, a forte of mine, I guess you might say. So I was like, I'd tie right in with, like, it's another Canadian. They were all kind of a fraternity back then. It was Sydney, Ted Kotcheff, Narizzano, Norman Jewison, and Arthur Hiller, and like all these guys were in Canada, in Toronto, around the same time, and they all left because there was no life there. There was no film life there. Jewison and Hiller went right to Hollywood. Kotcheff, Fury, and Narizzano, and Lindsay Shonteff, and a few other guys went to England before they ultimately landed to whatever degree in Hollywood. So I'm interested in that particular fraternity of what you might call the Anglo Canucks, the guys who went from Canada to England, because I think their particular sensibility is very niche and very, very special, and they have their own little quirks and their own little mannerisms. And I think they had an insight into the British New Wave type films that the native Brits, it's not a lacking per se, it's just another point of view that I think is fresh and exciting. When you look at Fury's The Leather Boys, if you look at the Ipcris File, or if you look at Georgie Girl, or if you look at what Ted Kotcheff did with Life at the Top, or Two Gentlemen Sharing, there's like a real, like kind of a cockeyed thing about those Canadians making those British films. So I'm very, very invested in that from, I guess, a scholarly point of view. So I was like, okay, I can make this documentary. Silvio ties right in with all this, with this field of mine. So that's how it really began. It was like, okay, I get to tackle another one in that fraternity of guys, which really, really interests me. So yeah, that's how it all got done.
That's great. John, do you have that Vinegar Syndrome release?
I do, yeah. It's a Spanish horror set, I think it is,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was one of three, and I never even heard of it before. But when I saw it, I was surprised by it, especially Hopper being in it, and I thought, yeah, out of the three films, it's definitely the most unusual out of them. So yeah, it really stood out in that set. But yeah, I do have it, but that Vincent set.
Yeah, I mean, Hopper was out of his mind on that film.
Oh, it showed
visibly. I mean, it's kind of like that's like saying that grass is green, but or water is wet. But I think Hopper, that was like a particularly fraught period for Dennis Hopper. So you get things in that movie like a real heroin needle protruding out of his arm. It's very like bracing and very abrasive to see Hopper in that post last movie era where he's very much unhinged. And then you have Carol Baker in the throes, or in the thick of her Italian horror period, and her all these all the films that she did there, Knife of Ice and Orgasmo and all that stuff. So she what a cast. It was originally, I think, as you see in the documentary, the original cast was slated as Rod Taylor, Rita Hayworth, and Terry Stamp, rest in peace. But we got we got Hopper, Carol Baker, and Richard Todd. What a strange film. But what I got kind of a sense of is that these are kind of, as I said, the term I use in the movie is harrowing self-reckonings. These are very challenging looks in the mirror that I think are as personal as filmmaking can get on that scale. And I was very interested in how Silvio was, I guess, the queerness or the gayness wasn't even subtext in many of these movies. It was just text. So I really wanted to explore, because, and as I say, and I believe this, if Silvio Narizzano ain't an auteur, nobody is an auteur, because there are certain tropes visually, thematically, and on and on and on that tie together very coherently all the movies that he made. It's very, very obvious once you watch them all in the order that they were made, that there's an arc, there's a clear trajectory, there's a thematic cohesion that I think a lot of people missed. And as I and the charm nowadays is that it took a lot for the auteur scholars of their day to put the pieces together, because where were they going to get the materials to view all these things all together? And you had to have a particular a lot of energy to kind of track these things down once upon a time, and then trace the kind of the through line and the thread. But now we have, everything is available now. More and more, home media is wondrous, because we have the insane privilege, which the people of the day could only dream of, like having these things so immediately at our fingertips, so that you could make a coherent case for someone like Narizzano. I'm working on a book at the moment, which is like a bunch of auteur studies of overlooked directors. There are a bunch. There's a Canadian section, there's a British section, and there's an American section. I think if I do a volume 2, that there will be an Aussie section. But
there's a lot.
But yeah, now that we have these materials and the films and the on Blu-ray and all these formats, you can do the heavy lifting that guys back then would have had a much harder time doing, or an impossible time doing. And I think we owe it to ourselves as film people to look at these movies anew and to identify the filmmakers who fell between the cracks, because now with that privilege we can watch everything together, we can trace all this stuff, and it becomes exciting, I think, to like discover someone that way at a time when you can for the first time, as opposed to, I mean, we can recognize all the guys who've already been revered and whatnot, and who've already been canonized. But it's much more exciting to me to dig up these guys that are ripe for more of a discovery, now that we can see them again, now that we can see them anew, now that we can watch the films, and we can go in order, we can have our own marathons, and we don't have to wait for programs to come along at the behest of others. So, that's my belief. And my book is basically like, well, here are some guys that have very, very conspicuous signatures that maybe we all missed. And here are the signatures. Here are the themes. Here are the visual tropes. Here's everything. Now go for yourself and watch these things and start, appreciating, I guess. Right. So
I wanted to mention as well with Dennis Hopper. I believe it was after he did Mad Dog Morgan in Australia.
Yeah.
And he was nuts even then.
No, he Mad Dog Morgan. I know that Philippe Mora had quite the time corralling him on that film, but no, he was out of his mind for quite a few years. I mean, my friend in LA is Henry Jaglom, and he was close with Dennis and made a film around that time with Dennis called Tracks. Henry accounts how Dennis physically attacked him unprovoked at a restaurant.
Wow.
Because he was Henry wasn't complimenting the woman that he brought on something or other. How was Henry to know that? But yeah, I mean, Dennis just lunged at Henry in the middle of this restaurant in somewhere in Hollywood, and basically it was a physical altercation. I think the cops were called, but no, he was out of his mind at that time. Mm-hmm. He was definitely troubled in large degree. But I think what's interesting about The Sky is Falling in particular is there's something very raw about his performance in that film. Raw, it's maybe an overused word in talking about that type of thing, but it's he's given permission to be unhinged as almost his natural self, and then he is in probably any other film of that time. It's as close to a self-portrait or close to a portrait of Dennis as he was at that time than probably any other film before he recovered, before he wound up doing, of course, Out of the Blue, which is quite a good film. And then he got back on his feet, and was before he was doing Hoosiers, and then he was back in action. But there was a time there when Hopper was not in a good way, and he was asking for trouble if you were to cast him. So yeah, I think The Sky is Falling is a very rare, kind of priceless document of that era of Dennis Hopper.
Yeah,
as I said, it's a very divisive movie. Some people think it's really, really fascinating. Others think it's nearly unwatchable. And I think a movie that can elicit that type of divided response from people is worth some manner of discussion. I think that one is definitely a big conversation piece that I think is pretty extraordinary. But Redneck, on top of that, which Telly Savalas and Franco Nero and young Mark Lester is another demented movie. I mean, I was just my husband. I put the documentary on. Finally, my husband was able to watch it, and Redneck was like, my God, this is he was like he couldn't believe how crazy it was. Like by the time we're accounting the camper hitch sequence in Redneck, he's like, what the hell? Like why is this so crazy? Why is it it's like, yeah, I mean, by all accounts, Silvio was one of the sweetest men to ever walk the earth. Just outside his movies, he was a very beloved human who taken, giving you the shirt off his back and giving you what you needed, and he was a true blue friend. But on film, I think, Howard Berger says, I think he used his films as psychotherapy. He could be more normal and nice and lovely in life by working it all out as therapy on film. And that's an interesting approach to life and art. If there
It is definitely.
Yeah.
Howard definitely does have a way of describing that, which is fascinating.
No, he was another one around the time when we were when I was first getting into Silvio and doing my kind of marathon, where I was checking in with Howard, and Howard was just like, "Oh, Silvio is a big meal unto himself. Narizzano is really, like you're if you're going beginning to end, you're in for really something of a treat. So, in terms of just if you're into decoding, filmmakers and what drives them, that's a 10-course meal there. So he was another one who, and then by the time I got Nathaniel Thompson on board, Mr. Eloquence, as I call him, I joke, I interviewed him again recently for another project that I'm working on, a new documentary, and I told him, Nathaniel, you can time an entire documentary, you can pace and time an entire documentary by the eloquence of your sound bites. You make the life of a documentarian very easy. He's very good at concise and very succinct, but very eloquent and provocative thoughts that can drive and propel your film onward. Mr. Eloquence is that's Nathaniel Thompson. I was assembling my interview cast, and I got very lucky on Silvio because, as we said earlier, Silvio Narizzano is not a known quantity for most people. So, like, who can you get on camera to talk? I knew that David Del Valle was the first to get on camera, and I knew that he would be great because we had been talking about him anyway. And I was like, okay, I can get Howard. Let's see who else I can get to talk. And Nathaniel came in, another guy named Ken Anderson, who has a wonderful blog. He had written about 3 of Silvio's movies. Like, he tried to beg off at first, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not an expert on this guy. I don't know." And I said, "There are no experts on this guy. What are you talking about? You're it, man. Like, you're the ball game here. You gotta, come on, man. You got things to say." I've read them, and he acquiesced, and he was great.
John interviewed Nathaniel Thompson recently, and we were just talking about Daniel calls, what is it you call it, Mr. Eloquence?
Mr. Eloquence, yeah. No, I said you can. I interviewed Nathaniel for another documentary I'm working on recently, and I said, you're Mr. Eloquence. You can a documentarian can time and propel their movie forward by the conciseness and the potency and succinctness of your thoughts and of your sound bites. So he's very helpful for someone editing a documentary. You can just be like, drop a little Nathaniel, and it's like you can get to your next point because he said something so well.
Yeah, Nathaniel's amazing. He's in our documentary, which is coming up. We shot with my friend Danny on Anchor Bay, and Nathaniel gave some really incredible pointers, and everything he said was gold. We don't even want to cut it out. That's the thing. We don't know how to trim it down. It's just everything's perfect. If
you're doing a physical media release of your Anchor Bay documentary, one of the wonderful things is you can include, as I did on the Silvio disc, extended interviews, which that was a perk because there were a lot of things there including deleted scenes from the doc where things I might have wanted to include, but they didn't quite fit in, or maybe at that particular point in the movie they were a little redundant perhaps. So I included, but yeah, extras are great. So you can, if you wanted, you can do extended interviews if you're doing a disc of it.
The fascinating thing about your documentary, Daniel, is watching it, and then I realized his directorial debut was a film I have seen before, because when we announced it for the Imprint bundle, I said I don't think I've seen any of his movies, and I thought I'd give it a go. Looking forward to discussing this as well. But then John mentioned Georgie Girl. I go, wait, I have seen Georgie Girl. That one I have seen. But then watching your documentary, his directorial debut was a Hammer movie, and his Hammer movie is Fanatic, or Die Die My Darling, and it's one of my favorites from the '60s. I've always loved this film. Tallulah Bankhead gave a memorable performance. But
A barns, we call that a barnstormer. He died in a car accident.
but I think John and I discussed this before we started recording. You have given it a brand new insight that I've never noticed before. I don't know if you've noticed it, John, either, because it's
No. First time I saw it, I liked it, but I couldn't. Like sort of something. I wouldn't say there's something different about it. And now with your commentary, Daniel, on the documentary, it's given a whole new light of what it really means, that movie. So going in now with that sort of, I guess, queer sort of angle to that film, it's a completely whole different perspective on that film. So when I rewatched, I'm like, oh, okay, now I think I see what this film's about. So which I completely went past me the first time.
Even divorced from those likenesses of the son around the house, which, I mean, there were at least three gay male interview subjects in the documentary who tuned into that. But even divorced from that, that's just a film that would play very well with like Peaches Christ at the Castro Theater in San Francisco. It's just got that vibe to it. So it even apart from that, it's kind of gay. You could watch it as something gay in its way, and you can watch it just as a Hammer movie, of course. But you can I think different audiences would definitely have a good time with different aspects of it. And but really, if you add on the layer of like those portraits and likenesses of the son around the estate are definitely operating on some level here. It opens another dimension, another window into what that movie is and what it's doing.
It like I said, ticks all the boxes as a Hammer film as well, in exploitation or melodrama or horror. So it seems to tick it. So and seeing it, so that it's given me a new appreciation for that film. And like I said, Tony, it was a director I went through. I don't think I've seen any, but then I went through. I've seen Georgie Girl. I'd seen Redneck before, and I was like, I honestly thought that was an Italian director, an Italian film. I did not know that it was obviously a fellow Canadian that made it. So we can probably get into Redneck later, but that just blew me away, because I thought that was 100% Italian production and film as well. And like I said, I saw the one in the Vinegar Syndrome Spanish box, and I honestly thought it was a Spanish director. I had no idea, obviously, as well. So very European looks to his films, and the fact that he was so diverse in his filmmaking, we can get to that later. But those were the films that I'd seen before, and I was like, wow, I have seen some of his films, and they're very intriguing.
Yeah, here's a little further inside baseball, as we say. When I was at the Ted Kotcheff Memorial last month, it was a very nice event, but one of the people there and one of the guys who spoke at the DGA event was Tom Noble, who won the Oscar for editing Witness, the Peter Weir film. And if you look at his credits, Tom Noble is, he's nearly 90, big editor, one of my favorite cutters. He edited Redneck. I didn't know. I would have interviewed him for the movie if I knew that I had a sense that he was alive, but I looked at the year of his birth. It's like, oh, he's 90, so he's probably not in great shape. No, he was there looking, very chipper, and he was there with his wife, who was a supermodel, and he's doing quite well. But I wanted him to, as like we were just getting food and hanging out at the house, at the party at the house afterwards, and I said, I need to ask you about Redneck, and he told some outrageous making of stories when it came to Redneck. It would take me a while to recount in detail here. A part of me wishes I could have included them, or had and maybe I don't know. By that point, the dock and everything was off to the disc pressers, so I couldn't do anything. But with Tom, hearing after the fact, and also that something I really wish I could have mentioned, at least in the voiceover, was that Silvio Narizzano's life partner, Win Wells, who wrote Redneck and The Sky is Falling, was a drag performer at one time. His lifelong ambition was to open a gay nightclub called Sissies, actually. So I was like, wow, that's a detail I wish I could have woven into the final cut, but I think it's fine without it, but it would have been a nice extra bonus. Tom had a ton of stories about Redneck. We were talking about Redneck for, I want to say, about an hour, where my poor husband is across the table from us, not knowing what the hell is going on. And we're, all these things are coming out, all these like weird details. And, if you don't know about Redneck and you're hearing like dips and bops of like, scenes and as they're being described by people, Evan, my husband's across the table, like, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. It's like, I am so, like, I get it. You want to, I know this is important to you, but God damn, what the hell, what the hell is this movie anyway?
I haven't even seen it, and from what I saw, it looks nuts. I'm really I would love to watch it.
Yeah, it's a great film. Some really nasty characters, and in a good way. Like there's very despicable characters in the film, and once again, I just never saw the connection. So it's a great film. And a friend of mine, Paul, Paul John Blair in Japan. He's a massive Felicia Teschi, huge Italian film fan, but he loves Redneck. He said it's one of his favorites. And he had no idea that it was from this director. He thought, I thought it was an Italian guy. So no, it's not. So once again, just a very unusual film. Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah.
With a name like that, Narizzano, it blends right in.
Yeah, it does.
That's not exactly a Canadian name per se, but Montreal kid, and from a very ethnic Italian family. So yeah, but yeah, in the context of Redneck or The Sky is Falling, it's like, some like anonymous European guy, Italian policier guy, Canadian, really? Wow, okay. Yeah.
And then I believe he made his breakout movie after Fanatic, Georgie Girl. Yeah. I don't own a copy of that, unfortunately. I thought I did, but I don't. But I remember watching it.
Indicator, I think.
The one to have if you're getting
Indicator. Yep.
Indicator.
I know John's got it, but I've got to get that as well. Yeah, I know Lynn Redgrave, Alan Bates, and of course Charlotte Rampling. Good Lord, that performance of hers.
She's a wretched human being. Yeah.
A wretched human being indeed. Absolutely. Yeah. That was a great film. But of course, here in Australia, the theme song, of course, it was performed by Judith Durham and the Seekers, and it's a huge hit back then for Australia as well. And
it was.
My in-laws, when they watched the film and very much enjoyed it and loved it, and but going into it though, there was like, oh, Georgie Girl, we the song, like most people know the song more than the movie. So like that was what they entered the movie. It's like, oh yeah, Georgie Girl, fun, and then like they get to Redneck and The Sky is Falling. It's like, okay, this is not what I expected, but hey, this is cool still,
Oh, yeah, it's a pretty heavy film at times, Georgie Girl, especially with what's going on with Rampling and Redgrave and Bates, and what a vile I can't believe what a vile character she was. After watching the documentary, it reminded me of it, and I thought, damn, I forgot all about that.
James Mason being effortlessly lovable still has a bit of a perv streak in him. It's like, I want you to be my mistress, his inimitable style. But everyone is there's a lot that's off about that film, but it's him it's Silvio at his most giving, I think, audience wise.
Everyone knows the song catchy, and even based on that cover, because the first time I saw it was the Indicator release, and this looks like some sort of happy-go-lucky sort of movie, but it's got really sort of, I guess, theme, almost like a Ken Loach film. Like it's very much the working class. Like it's not really all fun and rainbows as it appears to be on the cover. So the film's actually quite dark in bits as well. So I think he has that dark sensibility throughout it. But yeah, it was a real surprise. I really like Georgie Gill, and I go back to it quite a bit as well because it's more than just the theme song.
Right. Yeah, it is. It was definitely a suggested for mature audiences movie, for the original 1966 crowd. It's tame now, but back then it was slightly scandalous, I want to say. But
Yes.
But yeah, it was an important film. I think a lot of my friends are elder, and they're elder film people, and they all remember Georgie Girl making a splash either in America or in the UK, or I guess you're Australia as well, with the Seekers and all that. But yeah, it that had the most impact of any of Silvio's movies, and that kind of wrote a ticket that was kind of, I don't want to say squandered with Blue, because I think Blue is a worthy movie on its own right, but it certainly didn't do Silvio's career any favors.
Definitely. It was, so we'd say that Georgie Girl was his most successful quote unquote film out of his, in terms of financial as well. Yeah. Box office.
Yes. Yes. I mean, you can also make the argument for Why Shoot the Teacher, but we're talking about the nascent Canadian box office. So kind of different numbers, different standards. But Why Shoot the Teacher did very well for Canada, for when Canadian films weren't making a lot of money at that early stage. Why Shoot the Teacher did quite well. But yeah, other than that, there's not a lot in terms of commercial success.
Yeah. Which is a shame, because the next film we're going to be discussing is the very first film in this amazing set that Imprint had released. And of course, the first film is from 1968, Blue.
Killer, lover, villain, hero. Blue, two men in one. He was the foundling whom the guerrilla raiders raised to manhood. He rode with them till the day he discovered the world of his birth and fought for the possession of his soul. Starring Terence Stamp as Blue, violent and wild, soft-spoken and tame.
Blue, I know how hard it must be to have to kill those you once loved.
You saw these hands the night I was choking Ortega. I took pleasure in it, like I always did, like I always will.
Joanna Pettit.
See more than one grown man in his natural state. Spectacle holds no surprises for me.
Carl Malden.
He can't go back to them, Pa. He killed one of them. There's no way he can go.
No, miss. What he does has to be his decision.
And Ricardo Montalban as Ortega.
All right, defy me then. And with a fist, fight!
Blue, torn between two selves. Lover, killer, hero, villain. Blue, torn between two worlds. One rooted deep in a savage way of life. The other, the way of the new settlers of his homeland. He followed orders all of his life until the day he was called upon to lead.
A breather's not gonna hurt anyone.
You'll do your breathing when I tell you to. Now move on.
This was the first time I've ever seen this, and I have never seen. Okay, it's a slow-moving western. It's a slow burn, but I have never seen a more beautifully shot western in a while. This was one of the most incredible.
Yes, Stanley Cortez, who's one of the great cameramen. Night of the Hunter is like
Yes.
textbook great cinematography. One of the things I'm proudest of that's on the extras is one day David Del Valle had realized that he had a recording of his interview with Cortez at the ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers Clubhouse from 1984-ish, I think. Yeah. And he's like, I think I have it somewhere. He found it. We put it on. I'm very happy that's on there. And he is too, because that interview had no home for quite a while, for all that time. It had never been heard before. These are his archives, that no one had really listened to since way back when. So I was happy to include that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that interview. I actually heard it today. That was a really fascinating interview with of Stanley Cortez's career, especially with Orson Welles for The Magnificent Ambersons, as well as you said, with Lawton for Night of the Hunter. That was those films. Of course, Night of the Hunter is one of the most beautifully shot films of the 50s. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think in general of all time, you might even argue. Yeah. It's the images in that, them immediately. Everyone knows they're iconic. There's so many visually powerhouse images that are now iconic from Night of the Hunter and from the rest of Cortez's filmography. He was a very esteemed cameraman who was very slow and very methodical with his lighting, to the point where he was almost fired off of Blue for taking so long with everything, and Silvio had to fight to keep him because they were right on the verge of firing him because he was just taking so long with everything. But he was a perfectionist. He was extremely meticulous, and even the movie, I think for a number of reasons, didn't do well in its day. And but I think the one thing that most critics could agree on was that it was a beautiful looking film with because of Cortez. That turned out to be something in its favor in the long run.
Absolutely, and also Terence Stamp's performance. May he rest in peace. John and I watched it, freakily enough, the day before his passing.
The same, the day before he passed.
I
watched it.
I had just gotten my pack of 10 of the set. Normally I just get one, just to be clear, but because my film was in the pack, I got a pack of 10. And then I got it. I was very excited. The very next day, oh, Terence Stamp died. I was like, shit. Well,
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, but great actor. I tried to get him last year, but I Josh at Imprint had told me they had tried to get him as well for another package, and he just wasn't granting any interviews, or the people who were taking care of him were not granting any interviews the last 4 or 5 years or so. I did attempt it though when I was shooting it last year. I was hopeful because I had because I work with Trailers from Hell and Joe Dante and everything. I'm in touch with a lot of the gurus on there, so I know that Edgar Wright had worked with him on the Soho movie. So I emailed Edgar. I asked him is there any fast track to get to Terry without having to deal with agents or reps or anything like that. And he's like, no, I'm sorry to say I don't have a direct line that way, but good luck. was his thing. Yeah, I tried a number of angles, but I couldn't get him. But I think now we know why.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would have done it, but it's a really different performance for a Western. And once again, like you said on your documentary and commentary, but it's a very sort of like sensitive performance. Like it's not at the time Westerns like rugged, sort of tough man. It's a very subtle, very sensitive, soft performance. And I, once again, breaking down more the themes of the film, it makes sense in that light. And I think just the world wasn't ready for a Western like this at the time, because revisionist Westerns wouldn't come for at least a few years after, like McCabe and Mrs. Miller. So this was just ahead of the curve, and I think that unfortunately audiences just didn't react to it. And it was just unfortunately just a bit ahead of its time. Blue.
I the opening scene is the Blue character, the Terrence Stamp character, kissing a man square on the lips and then killing him in cold blood. You get the I could do my Roger Livesey imitation from The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. I think a lot of the critics were going, "What's going on here?" You know. I think that it got under the skin, as I say in the voiceover, of a lot of the classicists. That, and there was just a glut of westerns. I think there was just this fire hose of westerns. Critics were getting honestly very tired of reviewing westerns, and then along comes this, as they see pretentious thing. What does this movie think it is? You know, I think that was the attitude largely. And another person I got to meet at the Ted Kotcheff Memorial, I'm glad I got the opportunity, was Peter Bart, who used to be Robert Evans's right-hand man at Paramount. Really put out a lot of the fires and that reign at Paramount. He knows. He's a guy who, in a manner of speaking, knows where the bodies are buried. And he wrote a great book on his time at Paramount that came out not long after Evans's Kid Stays in the Picture came out. I have it out there. It's called Infamous Players is the name of the book. I'm glad I was able to get in touch with, that I was able to talk rather to Peter at the thing. He was staying in a shady part of the party all alone because it was an outside party. And I was like, okay, now's my time to talk to Peter Bart. And I went over, and I wanted to pick his brain on all types of things. From Fury, who he knows Sydney, because Sydney was at Paramount at that time. I wanted to talk to him and tell him that, you know, that there's a box set of Blue and Fade In coming out, because he was around for the fallout around those two movies. And he just went, really? Like, he was truly and honestly shocked. You know, he's like, is there, like, it was almost like, really? Like, is there really? I was like, yeah. I was like he's like, do people like it now? I was like, I think it's getting a little reappraisal now. It's getting some respect, and it's like, well, give anything some time, it'll get a little more. But I think he was surprised, but kind of tickled by it, because you know, he told me, he's like, listen, Blue wasn't a happy experience for me at the studio when that movie flopped. That didn't reflect very well on Bob or me. So you know, that was. I'm not going to say that was the happiest experience I ever had. And then when we had to shelve Fade In because we just didn't have the money to put out a movie that wasn't testing well, you know, we were in dire financial straits at that point, and we had to let go of a number of movies. I know the ones, Negatives, which just came out from Severin, was originally a Paramount film that they had to let go. Paramount underwrote it. Paramount the UK underwrote it. And they had to let distribution rights go because they couldn't afford to put out that movie. And because Fade In was so tied to Blue, no one but Paramount could have put it out. And then, of course, they had to shelve it. And also another one that they had to shelve around that time was Two Gentlemen Sharing by Ted Kotcheff, was a Paramount UK movie that they had to let go. AIP put it out in America, American International. But Peter Bart was just like, yeah, we had egg on our face from Blue and Fade In, and that was not easy. And then it was a love story that saved our asses. But you know, the 69-68 season, those are hard times. You know, so we talked about that for a while. I was very happy that I got the time with him. But you know, he's a legend in that sense. But yeah, he was a quiet, shady part of the party all alone. I was like, now's my time, I'm going.
Yeah, but also I gotta say one thing. Okay, this is about personal for me. I'm of Greek background, and of course the movie has two Greek people involved in the movie. Of course, the first is, of course, in a very small role, mind you, Stathis Yalelis. Sorry, I can't help it when I speak Greek accent. I have to say any Greek thing. I can't help it. My apologies.
Do it, Tony.
Oh, great.
And I remember seeing him in this beautiful film. I don't know if you've ever seen this, John. Elia Kazan's America. This is one of the best Elia Kazan films. Nearly 3 hours long, but it is incredible. Basically about a Greek coming to America, and it's beautiful. But watching Stathis Yalelis in this film, very different. I didn't expect something like that. Like, that sequence with Joanna Patet and stuff is, she's trying to get away from him, assaulting her. Those sounds he does with his voice, and I heard in your commentary with David Del Val that he had to do that in the dubbing. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Silvio needed him to come in to record, not even lines, just sounds.
Yeah, I heard those sounds. I thought, okay, that's a very interesting sound, to say the least.
Yeah.
But of course, the other Greek involved in this movie, Blue, is Manos Hatzidakis, who does this beautiful music score. The score is phenomenal.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen it on vinyl or on CD. Have you ever seen the soundtrack?
No.
It is out
But
there.
it was on the because it was on the doco you did show.
Yeah, it was on the doco.
But I've never seen a copy in person. Like in all the years I've been searching, I would like to definitely track one down because it's an incredible score.
When I was doing the final roundup at the end of the film of the documentary, of the kind of like, okay, these are the films we've seen. This is kind of the visual mosaic or the life in images of Narizzano in that kind of musical montage. I knew it had to be Manos himself playing on the piano the theme from Blue, because I think that's the kind of the beyond Georgie Girl. That's the signifying music of Silvio's career would have been Manos' score, which I think and Silvio went to his grave believing that Blue was his best movie. He had a very soft spot for that film. I know he loved the music. I know he loved really everything about that particular movie of his. So yeah.
It definitely and when I saw it, obviously it was the first time watching it, I got a vibe of like the spaghetti western genre as well, because I know it's a studio American western, but there's so many spaghetti western tropes, and you could swear that it was a Leone film, for example, just the music, the setting, the bandits, and it has this really, because it just doesn't feel like an American studio western. I don't know. That's just the vibe I got seeing it as well. Sort of
it was shot in '67. The spaghetti westerns, they were delayed releases when it came to appearing in America. I think The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly didn't appear, even though it was 1966. I don't think it arrived in America until 68 or so. So I think it was like a year delay. So it would have been in advance of that. Silvio maybe saw for a few dollars more, or Fistful, or any of the other ones. So I think maybe there was some influence there, perhaps. Yeah. I do think, if you look at the writing credits, Mead Roberts.
Screenplay by Mead Roberts and Ronald M. Cohen.
Yes. I think the concept of the film, the treatment or whatever, the original spec script was Ronald M. Cohen writing it as a pretty typical Western. And I think it was Silvio who brought in Mead Roberts, who was right-hand man for many years to Tennessee Williams, was gay himself. And I think that it was through Silvio telling Mead to infuse the rewrite of Blue with this gay subtext. I think that's how we wound up with the final movie.
Yeah, speaking of the writing, as you said earlier, the reviews of Blue, unfortunately, were not great. One, as I mentioned when we did the Sidney J. Fury episode, I always do follow the Leonard Maltin movie guide. And unfortunately, he gave Blue 1.5 out of 4. Like his review here, it says, undistinguished, poorly written Western about American-born Mexican-raised boy who trusts no one until bullet wounds force him to trust a woman. That's the review.
Here's the thing about Maltin and the Stephen Schuer guide, which was a thing until I want to say about the mid '90s, is that a lot of the critics on staff at Maltin or the movies on TV guide, their viewing source would have been pan and scans. They would have been kind of compromised, So when you're looking at Maltin giving a bomb rating to Sheila Levine is Dead and Living in New York, which was the hit of the Fury box set a couple years ago, and still continues to rake in the solid rankings on Letterboxd and all the sites, these wonderful new reviews saying like, wow, what a wonderful discovery. You have to keep in mind that a lot of these critics were watching the clipped for TV airings as they were available to them to be reviewed. So I think Blue was in that lot, and I think the original reviews that had the fatigue of the glut of westerns, the fire hose of westerns, the way that the movie got under the skin of the classicists, as I mentioned earlier. I think that was a deadly cocktail that impacted the movie for years, unfortunately. But the thing is that these movies live on. We can look at them divorced from all that now, and we can look with fresh eyes. And I'm sure even Peter Bart, maybe he has PTSD over it, but I'm sure if Peter Bart looked at it again, he could see maybe how it better fits into a 2025 context, how a Western like Blue fits in better now than something more traditional, perhaps, for a modern audience. Something kind of pushing boundaries and messing with the elasticity of the genre, I think. The movies don't change, we do, I think, is the idea. So I think the time is ripe to go back and behold what the film has been doing all along, and do it with a fresh pair of eyes.
Definitely. And also, piggybacking on that, Tony, I was going to say I read Roger Ebert's review as well. He gave it 1 star. But once again, his review, it's more just expecting a more traditional Western. And I think, like you said, Daniel, they were all burnt out at this stage with Westerns. And I think his main points were just saying that he felt it was dull, Terrence Stamp being miscast. And so obviously just expecting a more sort of traditional Hollywood Western at the time, and which is surprising because obviously I really respect Ebert's reviews. But once again, he's missed a few times, many times in terms of giving a poor rating. So, but yeah, that's a very interesting read as well. Yeah,
he gave Brazil 2 stars, I think.
Yeah,
and Blue Velvet 1. Infamously.
Oh, he loathed Blue Velvet. I remember that.
Yeah. Blue Velvet. Yeah, quite a number. I think a lot of people kind of were over-indexing at the time on the accent. They were troubled by, and to me, I love what Nathaniel Thompson says. Like, this is like some type of alien or a Greek god who's kind of fallen to Earth, and the idea is like the character doesn't fit in either context, either milieu. He's kind of trapped in the middle. So this kind of alienness of that character kind of operates on another wavelength. If you can look past, and I kind of find Stamp was very indignant around the time when he was being interviewed for, there's one in, I believe, Sight and Sound, about how he was kind of pissy about the critics carping about the accent. And he was like saying like, oh, I could have done a better American accent. We were like, of course, why are people so obsessed with this? And so it's like we were trying something different, for God's sake. It's like, so he was a little perturbed by the lack of understanding, I think. And he loved Silvio. In the Terry put out his memoirs. I don't know exactly when, but I looked at them for my research. He had nothing but the greatest things to say about Silvio as a person, as a man, and as a collaborator. He's one of Terry's favorites of all the directors that he worked with. I think there was a closeness there. I think he would have wanted to have worked with him again, and I think they were in talks about him doing The Sky Is Falling. But of course, that way, I think he would have gotten the Hopper part. I think Rita Hayworth would have gotten Carol Baker, obviously. I think Rod Taylor would have gotten the Richard Todd part, and I think that Stamp would have gotten the Hopper part if the original casting had gone through. But yeah, I think he would have wanted to have worked with him again. He had nothing but love for Silvio, and not always about every other director. He was quite honest, but he loved Silvio dearly.
The Stamp character is interesting. That obviously like an alien being dropped, because and obviously listening to your commentary and the analysis on it, but because the first time I saw it, obviously, like I said, it's a very sensitive sort of character, and like you said, it could be a metaphor for this character's sexuality, because they don't know where they fit in their tribe. Obviously they're in this sort of rough, rugged tribe of men, Mexican bandits, and he doesn't kind of fit anywhere. So that was really interesting, watching it again and going, I think I kind of see a little bit more about what this film's trying to say.
Yeah, and getting Stathis for an interview. He doesn't do this type of thing nowadays. I was lucky in that I had the endorsement of Foster Hirsch, who has been a friend of mine since around 2007 or so, when he was doing his Otto Preminger book. They screened America, America at Film Forum when I lived in New York years ago. Foster saw me waiting in line, and it looked like it looked like the show was sold out. I wasn't going to be able to get in, and I was on the cusp of leaving. Foster saw me. He remembered who I was, and we got better acquainted later on. But he's like, "Oh, hello, nice to see you here." And I was like, "Are you online for this wonderful America screening?" I was like, "I was, but it's sold out. I know." It's like, no, you can't give up. You can't give up. And he's like, "Just wait here." He went inside. I'm at the end of the line. Foster comes out of Film Forum, and he points at me, and he goes, and I got in thanks to Foster.
Lucky.
And Stathis was there for that Q&A, because he developed a friendship with Foster. I think Foster is like the Stathis whisperer. When I emailed Foster, I was like, "I'd love to talk to Stathis Eulalis about his experience on Blue." I think he talked to Stathis. He told him about me, and eventually, he did call me on the phone. It was a phone interview, so that worked out. But yeah, that's how I got him.
Yeah, that's lucky. I saw that video. I heard that interview today as well.
Yeah.
Like, I love the credit how you said Stathis does not give video interviews. And okay, so it's audio.
Yeah.
That's fine as long
At
as
least you got him on the record. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he speaks highly of Narizzano. He speaks very highly, and of course, his experience on the movie, he enjoyed it very much.
I think everyone who worked with Silvio, I don't think there were any people who were just like, "Oh, he was an awful human," and he was an incompetent bastard, none of that. They're like, I think pretty uniformly everyone loved him. I think everyone really respected him and thought highly of him. The movies turned a few heads, but I think that's belied by the fact that just how sweet and accommodating and artistic he was.
Before we get into the next one, I just wanted to mention, I know the original casting was supposed to be Robert Redford instead of Terrence Stamp.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Blue. It would have been a very different film. And I don't know. That's how I would have seen it.
Completely different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it works like that. And I was going to say as well, this just quickly before we finish up on it has the great Carl Malden, of course, who is he plays the Doc character, and it's interesting because it crossed my mind. I'm a huge fan of One-Eyed Jacks, the Marlon Brando film, and I saw very similar crossovers just in terms of like a redemption story. Once again, even that film has some, I guess, queer themes spread out throughout as well. One-Eyed Jacks. So it's quite interesting if you see them as a double feature. It makes a really interesting double. So I just thought I mentioned that sort of crossover with Carl as the Doc character.
Yes, the scenes with all the people at the homestead, and there's a card game, and there are men at the table, and there are the silhouettes, the lineup of the silhouettes behind Malden. A number of the shots in that part of the movie are just they're paintings to me. They're just like they're really, really stunning visuals to behold. Yeah, I think Malden the people were able to connect him up with films like One-Eyed Jacks, or with this kind of heritage of classic Americana type films, so that his presence in a kind of what was a newfangled Western that was maybe experimenting a little more with the genre and the form, people could ground themselves a little with Carl Malden in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that his presence is appreciated in that way.
Yeah, that's an old school classic Western. Yeah, which audiences could identify with. An older audience could at the time, definitely.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And of course, Ricardo Montalban. He's also great in it too, as Ortega. He was really good in that one. And Joanna Patet, I thought she was really pretty good as well.
Just phenomenal cast. And look at the talent behind it. Yeah.
So it's as close as you'll get to a swinging London American Western as you'll get, because Joanna Pettit and Terrence Stamp were fixtures in that world. So yeah.
But the next film in this set, I have to say, as I think you mentioned it, I think you called it a footnote, a movie footnote. Daniel, is that right?
Yeah, that's about right. I would have been curious to have seen the original cut of the film. I know that it was, of course, this is the first use of Alan Smithy as a credit.
Yeah.
So, I know that there was a lot of behind the scenes wrangling when it came to this title. And I think, it's just a novel concept of going on location for one movie, and then we have another piggyback movie kind of on top of it about a movie being made, and the characters that are orbiting around the first movie. Pretty out there, pretty far out for that time. And even now, as Paul Lynch, my friend Paul Lynch says in the interviews, like, first time ever been done, last time.
And of course, the film we're talking about here is Fade In, which is included in the set. But it certainly was a different type of movie. I have never. Well, it was shot, of course, in 1968, same time as Blue was being shot, but it wasn't released until 5 years later in 1973. And as you said, Daniel, it's the first use of the name Alan Smithy. Of course, the real director was Judd Taylor. So,
yeah.
But one thing about this film, I have to say, once again, the scenery in the movie, incredible. Some of the shots in the movie, I loved. John, what did you think of Fade In?
Yeah, it was different. Like I said, it's a really good companion piece to obviously Fade In, because you literally see behind the snes on the other film as well. And once again, it looks amazing too, and it stars obviously Burt before he became big, and I guess I think it was obviously shelved, and then obviously, like I said, Burt became a star, so they decided to release it. But once again, going back to Burt, obviously he's known as like the tough guy and everything, but once again, this is a romantic role. Once again, it's very different. I've never seen Burt Reynolds in a role quite like it, so I really enjoyed it from that perspective. It was very different, but it makes a really interesting double, seeing them back to back.
I really pleaded with Josh at Imprint, I think they were looking at maybe putting Fade In and another Burt box. I was like, no, you've got to put Blue and Fade In together. They belong together. Like, if you're gonna watch Fade In, and all of a sudden, like, Ricardo Montalban is gonna pass on by, and it's like, wait, what's he doing here? And but if you know the connection to Blue, it's like, oh, okay, then you could see the two, together. And I was like, no, we'll get credit for putting these two back. We're getting the band back together again.
Yeah.
We'll get credit for we're going the extra mile to put these two back in one place again. To one, you could see both. You could see the main movie. You can see the movie that was shot on top of it. And I think that was the best way to do it. And I think we are getting the kind of the credit for uniting a very curious pocket of film history and back into one box again. I think that's credit, because Kino Lorber did put it out on the isolated. I have it up here.
Standalone release. I think they just did it by
I've never seen the Kino version.
Yeah, Kino did a Blu-ray. I think it was a few years ago they did it. Yeah.
No, it was this past year. We were a little crestfallen. We were a little crestfallen because we were hoping that Blue and Fade In were going to be world premieres, and then Kino got in and did just Fade In, which I think even the first batch of commentators, audio commentators on the Kino version, were just like, listen, this movie will probably make more sense if you see it against Blue, if you see it against the movie that it was shot on top of, because we're going to see like Terrence Stamp pop up, and we're going to be like completely clueless. It's like, wait, what the hell is he doing here? And like, we're going to see Ricardo Montalban. I was like, wait, what the hell's going on? Like, why aren't these people credited? But if you see it in light of knowing Blue and seeing, then it makes sense, So I'm happy that we did that, and I'm happy that we were able to feature the doc and everything. And I think Fade In makes the most sense when you see it after Blue.
Absolutely,
it does.
That's what we did that, didn't we? Yeah. Well, I know I did.
Yeah.
John, you did the same?
Based on it. Yeah, that's why I did it. And thankfully, based on the spine number, that's kind of the suggested order I went in as well. So, because if I saw it the other way around, I'd be very confused. And I'm glad it wasn't in the Burt box set, because once again, those are more sort of his tough guy roles. And they have this
It
film.
wouldn't have worked. It would not have
and
worked.
without the context, I would have had no idea what was going on. So,
Well, like even Bert saying in the one scene, he's imitating Ricardo Montalban, going, "I am Ortega," and
Yes.
it's like if you see Blue, you understand why he did that.
Yeah.
You know? Like, because if you're watching it as just fade in, it's like, who is Ortega?
yeah, what?
That makes no sense. What's going on here? You know.
And even more confusing. I know.
Yeah.
No, but it's great. It's involved. It's included with Blue, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Just as a documentation, I guess, on like a nice companion piece. And this went, I believe, even to confuse the audiences even more, but it went straight to TV, like a TV movie. I think in the US. It finally came out. Yeah.
As I said, slated as a theatrical film. Paramount was in dire straits at that point financially. They had to cut a few movies loose. Like I mentioned, they had to cut Peter Medak's Negatives loose, which just came out on Severance. That was a Paramount film originally. They had to cut it loose because they could not afford to put it out with the cost of advertising and all that. It's just they couldn't afford it. They had to cut loose Two Gentlemen Sharing by Ted Kotcheff, which was, as I said, released by AIP in America. That was a Paramount film, funded Paramount film, but they could not afford to put that out. And Fade In being so connected to a Paramount product that was actually released, Blue, is like, well, we can't let this go to another company. This is tied in with us, so we're just going to have to shelve it. We can't do anything else. We're just going to have to put it on the shelf. And then and then finally, I think as you said, when Bert became famous with White Lightning and Deliverance, that was when they made the move to put it out as a TV film, and that's the backstory of that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting film. It's definitely a curiosity piece for sure.
Well, I love it because it's a real time capsule of movie making at that time. Like you see behind the scenes, the editing, the old editing machines, the camera crew. Like it's a real fascinating time capsule, just as a making of film as well. And obviously, it is a movie, but I was kind of amazed by just how movies at that time were made behind the scenes.
Way over there in the corner of my room here, I have Fade In, a very old video release of that movie under the title Iron Cowboy.
Iron Cowboy, okay.
Okay.
It's got Bird on the front, Iron Cowboy, and it's the worst. We were talking earlier about the Sky is Falling under the Bloodbath release having an unwatchable tape version. This version of Fade In, which I'm going to retain because just from a visual anthropology point of view, it's just I'm fascinated by old pan and scans, and the way that movies were presented once upon a time is something I might do a whole film about one day. I might do a pan and scan movie, a movie about the aesthetics of pan and scan, quote unquote. Yeah, this is a definite example of a mangled transfer of a movie under a nonsensical video title. But Iron Cowboy, I've got that over there still.
Iron Cowboy, wow. That's a real macho Western or something.
Well,
they have to sell it somehow.
You're gonna reel some people in at least by like, oh, Burt Reynolds cowboy movie. Okay, they're not gonna read the back of the cover probably, but
No. Yeah, your commentary with Nat Segeloff on Fade In, that was very good as well. Really enjoyed it.
Nat's a great friend, and he's the biggest mensch who walks the earth currently. I think is the very, very sweet and very lovely man, and he's been around the block in the film industry, and he was around for Fade In a little bit, and he recalls seeing it, I think, on a studio roster at some point, and wondered what happened to it because, of course, they never really put it out. So I figured he was just the right guy to go on with me. Mm-hmm. So Nat's great. Anytime I can do a track with Nat is a good thing.
But then, of course, the third film in this set is a bonus feature, and of course, it's probably I loved it.
The worst of the lot. The worst of the lot.
No,
terrible.
Terrible.
I loved it. I gotta
Yeah.
say, it's
And I can't even say it's a bonus feature. It's a feature.
it's a
It's a
full-on
feature.
feature, exactly. Like
Yeah.
Cruel, Usual, Necessary, The Passion of Silvio Narizzano. And Daniel, congratulations. This was a
Yep.
great doco. I loved it.
Thank you so
But
much.
of course, I started the documentary with your introduction, of course. And to me, as a cat dad, I love seeing your cat Staffy on the cat bed.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was this is probably the first this is the first documentary on Narizzano ever, and it's really
I think
first anything, first documentary, book, essay, whatever. First of anything on any of them. Yeah,
it's incredible.
yeah.
But then of course after Fade In, we see the movie Loot, the making of that, and some of the backstories of that, and then we get to the two heavy ones. It's just
As I put it in the film, Loot is a stop at the amusement park on the way to electroshock treatments.
yes.
Yes, yeah, those are experiences that you'll either get with or you'll just completely be alienated and turn it off. But yeah, or turn them off. Yeah, Redneck. I'm always checking the Letterboxd reviews and rankings for both of those. I'm surprised and shocked and heartened by the fact that people really like Redneck. Not all, but a lot of people do. The Sky is Falling is a more challenging film, I think, but certain people do like that too. I know I've read some very, very nice commendations of that one as well. But the one that I want more people to see is Young Shoulders. I think that's the one. That's the one. My documentary owes its existence to my having been blown away by Young Shoulders. Yeah.
From what I've seen from the documentary of Young Shoulders, it does look like a beautiful film. I would love to see it.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. You can watch it free on YouTube.
I was going to say, has there been a physical release of it? Oh no, it hasn't been. No, okay. Yeah.
No, it was a BBC Play for Today. It was one of the last ones. So if you know that series, Mike Lee and Alan Clark,
Yep.
A lot of great filmmakers would do these very ambitious arty TV movies, oftentimes.
Yeah,
and So a lot of the ones by those guys, when they came at least to my country, to the U.S., they would be theatrical releases. But so occasionally, Play for Today movies would show up elsewhere as in theaters. I think that Young Shoulders, as I say in my voiceover, would have been a prime candidate because it's just so amazing and out there and surprising. And my longtime cinematographer watched it at my recommendation, and he called me right after. He's like, that was incredible. Like, just not just that scene that I showcased, but the cutting patterns in the film. It is a piece of cinema that is, and it's quite a note for Silvio to have gone out on, because the film is very much about mourning the loss of a loved one and doing it in this very poetic way. And very, like it's a far out film. I hope more people see that. If they see the doc, I hope it inspires them to check out that one.
Well, it's on YouTube. Definitely go check it out for sure.
Be watching it. Yeah, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, maybe BFI or someone can give it a release, because I know they've been doing all those Play for Today releases. So hopefully it gets a release. But I'm glad at least it's out there, people to watch. So I'm gonna.
I've been in talks with a particular company about doing a double pack of another Silvio double pack that would potentially feature my doc, my film. So it might be featured on this one, might be featured on another future package for another Silvio 2-pack. So we'll see.
Okay.
It depends on if they can score elements or not.
Of course.
Yeah, no, but I love to see it, because not going back to Redneck, but once again, I think that he's really. I saw that was also, it gave me a lot more perspective, almost like a coming of age story with a young boy involved, and same with Young Shoulders. Sounds like another coming of age story. So I'd be, definitely, I'm going to watch them back to back now, and I'll check out Young Shoulders as well.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible film. Yeah, as I said, my documentary owes its existence to how I felt after watching that one. So yeah,
right. But of course, after Redneck and The Sky is Falling, you called this the school trilogy, which includes the Why Shoot the Teacher, the Class of Miss Carmichael, and Choices. From what I've seen from the documentary, Why Shoot the Teacher seems like a pretty heavy drama again, and
it's actually a little lighter. It did well at the Canadian box office because it had this kind of, there are some serious scenes, but there's a more embracing of life sense about it, I guess. And you have Bud Cort, who, you know, those who know him from Harold and Maude or Brewster McCloud or their movies. He's a very kind of disarming presence in the film. He has a humor about him that I think is very gracious and very warm. The character is based on a real, I think, based on a true account of a teacher on the Canadian plains during the Great Depression. That's a film worth seeing. I wish I could get a better looking copy of it. The copy that's featured in the doc is unfortunately the best I could get at the current moment. It looks like a mess a little bit, but yeah, hopefully that'll pop up again one day and a better looking transfer, and I could go into the doc and replace all those clips with better looking ones. But yeah, and then the Class of Miss McMichael, I would never say that that one and Choices are Silvio's best movies. I think Class of Miss McMichael is such a tonal confusion hodgepodge between Oliver Reed's kind of broad comic portrayal and the rest of it, which is like a, you know, very serious, very kind of nose to the grindstone. We need to do better with education in the UK type of statement, which Glenda Jackson was very much enthralled by, and I think Silvio felt that way as well. But it's interesting that he makes three films, as I call them in the film, the trilogy of pedagogy, three different movies about education in three different countries: Canada, the UK, and America. Choices being, I think, the weakest of all of Silvio's movies. It feels maybe a little like an after school special, but you got a young Demi Moore, her very first movie ever. It's funny. I was working last year on the doc, and I at the beginning I had this glimmer of like, maybe I could get her on camera, maybe I can interview her in some way, because this is pre-release of The Substance, and no one was really talking about it much yet. And my husband, who was away at the time, was just like, oh yeah, you know that Demi Moore is really kind of rising again. She's going to be, you know, in the Oscar running this year. I'm like, she's what? I was like, whoa, okay. And then of course, you know, The Substance comes out, and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to get her for a Silvio Narizzano documentary anymore. I think I can kind of throw any hope of that out. But yeah, if you want to see her at the youngest that she's ever been on camera, it's her first ever movie. Catch that one. But I don't heartily recommend Choices, unless maybe if you want to be a Silvio completist and see how it ties in with the rest of it, of his work, then yes. But don't begin with Choices. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
As you said, Young Shoulders is probably his final. That was his final theatrical film.
Well, it wasn't technically theatrical. It was as I said, a play for today that I feel could and should have been theatrically released when it was imported to when it was exported to other countries. But his last credit really of note was the Body in the Library, the Miss Marple Agatha Christie movie, which Nathaniel Thompson made a special case for. He made sure to endorse it during his interview. So I have a little thing in the documentary about the Body in the Library, which is a very elegant Agatha Christie adaptation, which really spurred the Miss Marple series under Joan Hickson at the BBC. That was the first of them, and really got them going on the right foot. So, but yeah, he basically gave up on, at least professionally, and retired and kind of cloistered himself in monasteries and Buddhist retreats and all this kind of stuff. So he's he couldn't cope with the loss of his life partner to cancer. He completely withdrew from life in a very big way. So yeah.
I was curious about his final years, because the documentary says obviously he goes into religion by, I guess, like sort of spiritual or different sort of new religions. And was he so? It's quite a recluse by the end of it. I mean, his
Yes.
final sort of
Yeah. I know.
very sad.
I know a guy who there's a guy who runs a site about Canadian film, who was briefly in touch with Silvio. I think they just shared like one brief exchange of emails, and that was it. But so he wasn't so completely cut off, but I think mostly he was pretty reclusive. Yeah.
It's a real shame.
Yeah.
He was never appreciated in his time. I mean, when he was alive, definitely.
Yeah. If heaven exists, I'm hoping that once I get up there, I'll be greeted by all the directors that I beat the drum for, who I didn't get a chance to meet, because I want to sit with Silvio and have a beer and talk about all these movies with him. But yeah.
Oh, it'll be great.
Silvio and Irving Rapper would be, a good first day in heaven. Yeah.
Oh, Irving Rapper, he will be amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, with thanks to this Imprint release, and of course thanks to you, Daniel, for your work on this release, he's hoping that there'll be a new appreciation of his work, and who knows, maybe Imprint may release more.
I hope so. And even as I say in the video intro on the disc, even if you don't jibe with the movies for whatever reason, I think at the end of the day, one should recognize that they were very individual works, the individual works of one man, and they were very customized to him, and they were very much artistic statements. So I hope at the very least people will recognize that, even if they maybe won't connect with them as potently as I did. Anyway.
But yeah, I really hope to see the set get picked up and like people just give it a chance as well. I mean, so I hope after listening to this, there's people that will be curious about Silvio's work and will definitely download, like the Sidney J. Fury box, like pick it up and just give it a shot and see what you think. Because that was another discovery for me, obviously. So yeah, it's keep championing these filmmakers, Daniel. It's amazing, these sort of underappreciated ones.
I peruse comments occasionally on a number of different places, and people will say like, "Oh yeah, I'm going for In the Heat of the Night and Midnight Cowboy and whatever." I was like, "Well, take a chance on the one that you didn't heard of, on the ones that you didn't hear of, No, really. I know that you know these, but like, roll the dice, take a chance. I know it's $80, but it's."
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you totally there. But I will have to say one thing though. When Terrence Stamp passed away, there were more people posting on the groups that they have purchased this because of course it has Terrence Stamp's passing, but of course another resurgence. But
happy to hear.
Yeah, but no, honestly, do not miss out on this set. It's definitely something to admire. It's completely different. It's a different Western. And the second movie is actually as Daniel says, a footnote to a making of the movie. But of course, the highlight is Daniel's documentary on Narizzano. It'll give you a full appreciation on this man and on his work. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the value of the set you're getting. I was just saying, for only like 80 Australian bucks, like you're getting 2 features and a third full documentary that goes for over 2 hours. The value is there in the set. It's incredible value as well.
Plus a lot of great extras.
Absolutely.
I mean, my work on overlooked directors really continues. As I might have mentioned earlier, I'm working on a book, basically a collection of essays. Many of them are culled from video essay pieces I've done for a number of companies, kind of adapted into readable pieces, into text form that as opposed to just a voiceover script. Now they're written essays, and so a number of new pieces written for the book are going to be in there as well. But it's going to be a really gigantic volume of directors that I'm sure most people have not really noticed all that much, who I think it's going to be illuminating to look at them in that way. And that's kind of my bag in a way, is I like drawing people's eyes over to the things that they might not know about or have noticed in the past. So I like overlooked directors. I like overlooked films.
Exactly. It opens audiences' appreciations to these films and also to those directors.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Cool. And I just want to say I love the artwork that on the box as well. It kind of suits the films very well. I don't know, just the the visuals of them too. There's something about it.
Yeah.
I think it was a challenge in a way. I know Josh intimated, like, we were kind of scratching our heads a bit, but I think we came up with something that works. So I'm very happy with it.
It more represents the films themselves, definitely, than the theatrical posters.
Yeah. Right on.
Absolutely. Well, Daniel, once again, thank you so much for being a part of this episode. And of course, keep up the good work and looking forward to your new book and other commentaries. And of course, you've done so many commentaries for Imprint Films as well as other companies. Thank you so much once again, Daniel, for joining in. And of course, John, as always, thank you for being a part of this episode. And of course, you can follow Daniel on Facebook. He's also a regular on our Imprint Films Blu-ray Collections fan group. Keep on listening to his work, his commentaries. They're amazing. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate your time today, Daniel.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you. I would do thumbs up, but isn't that an insult in Australia?
No.
No. I read Ronald Reagan got off the plane and did this in Australia, and various people were offended. I don't know.
Oh, I think they didn't like Ronald Reagan, but no, I don't think that's an insult. No way.
All right.